Patsy Interference is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
All right, wrapping up week one, the look ahead to week one. We have two guests here as we finally, after talking about how the Patriots can get to the playoffs, and talking about the best bets you can make on the Patriots. And Jack Jones, by the way, not going to prison, not even having regular probation. He's just going to do community service, and he's back, baby, as far as we're concerned. We are finally getting to Patriots-Eagles with two guests, and we are going to start with a first-time guest, Emmy Award-winning NBC Sports Boston producer of Boston Sports Tonight and Quick Slants, but more importantly, and this is word for word, from one Rob Snyder, Robbie Buckets on Twitter. He has watched every Eagles game since he was 6. He has watched every Patriots game of the last 12 years, and he has spent, this is an author's note, enough time with Mike Felger to send you to therapy 3 times a day. So we welcome in Rob Snyder. How are you, man?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, Rob, from the Philly area, ardent Eagles fan, here to provide some balance to an otherwise just ridiculous podcast as we talk about the Patriots all of the time. Get a sense of what they think going into this. We're going to break down some matchups. We've got some predictions coming on. And I'll ask you this first. I kind of did off the air, so I've already got you on the record. You make rundowns all the time. You set the conversation before the people, bring it live to television, including sometimes me, because I'm very fortunate to work with you and a lot of people at NBC Sports. How was my rundown that I sent you trying to produce and execute this podcast?
It was great. I know exactly where we're going. I know the order we're going in, and that's really all that matters. You don't, the great thing with a podcast rundown, as opposed to a TV rundown, is there's no random crap that you definitely don't need to know that's in front of you. So Tom Curran, to this day, I'll give him a rundown and he looks at half of it. He's like, I don't know what half of this means. Yeah. And I'm like, just look at the topics. So you'll be fine. Yeah.
Good. Well, on that note, because again, we're going to dive into, I think the people have been waiting for some just hard football knowledge, stats, breakdowns, matchups, et cetera. But, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a little bit more about a world that I don't think a lot of people know about. And that is producing live television in a sports market that's just as insane as where you came from up here in Boston. Give me just one thing that the average person watching Boston Sports Tonight, watching Tom on Quick Slants doesn't really know that kind of stirs the whole drink and brings it together.
I would say how invested the talent is in the product, which is, I think it can be seen as the producer kind of decides everything. But I'm more in, my job is more figuring out what the talent wants to talk about that day and then organizing it in a way that makes sense. Okay. And if we go to a day that's dry, I can't just send an email that says what do you guys want to talk about? I can send them, ideas or what other people are writing about or, things that might pique their interest. A lot of the time I will give my own takes on things to see if that kind of causes a stir. But for the most part, it's, it's what they want in an order that I kind of will throw together. But it's very collaborative, and I appreciate that from people who are working 2 other full-time jobs along with doing a 10 o'clock show at night. So
yeah, for sure. It's a lot of fun for me. I tell people all the time, who wouldn't want to do TV or be a part of that just kind of community, and yet there's just nothing like, hey, you got to go. Whether you're on one end or the other, it's live, and what happens, and everyone's going to see and make some sort of judgments, and that's it.
It's a blast.
It also just hit me that last year I wrote a story around Thanksgiving asking players in the Patriots locker room, hey, how can I take your media training guide, of which I butt heads with every single day asking you questions, and give it to folks to use at their Thanksgiving dinner table where they need to handle awkward questions or topics they can't broach. Oh, yeah. And it hit me. I need Rob Snyder in my ear producing certain conversations at Thanksgiving or holidays. You could do that, facilitate conversation directed somewhere else.
The Thanksgiving conversation has never made me comfortable. So that's one thing I don't think I could ever produce is Thanksgiving conversation. It would be silence. Good. Knives and forks hitting plates, and that's all I would want in my Thanksgiving dinner. I can't do Thanksgiving conversation.
Yeah. All right. Unless they're playing the Cowboys. I think the things are going to be loud. Things are going to be thrown.
Yes. If football's on, that's fine. But if we're at the dinner table, I wish I had earplugs half the time.
All right. We'll workshop that another time. All right. Let's start here. Down in Philly or on Eagles Twitter. What does this game mean? What do fans and media think of the Patriots and heading into this matchup? What's the vibe?
So as far as what it means, it's interesting because, you don't get to open the season against an inter-conference opponent very often. So in the grand scheme, theoretically, it really means very little as far as it's not a conference game, it's not a division game. And, a lot of teams will look back and look at week one and be like, well, whatever, it was week one, especially if it's against an opponent that has nothing to do with tie-breaking scenarios. On the other hand, I think this game means a lot to the Eagles because their schedule gets extremely difficult about 9 games in. And I don't believe in the Super Bowl hangover as a whole. If you look at teams that have lost the Super Bowl, usually the next season they're very good for the most part, especially teams that came within 1 score of winning the Super Bowl. They were fantastic the next season. But they can start slow. And I would say with the way the Eagles schedule and the way it kind of works itself out, I think starting slow would be a bad thing for them. I think they're the first team ever to face 5 teams in a row that won 12 or more games the year before.
Wow.
That comes in November when they play the Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys, Seahawks. That's like a 6-game stretch, all teams that were in the playoffs. So it would behoove them to start fast. And as far as like how people feel, I think everyone's a little on edge. Everyone's always a little on edge week one. I think people think the Eagles will be good, but they don't want to start the season on a slow note. And I think I think most people think that the Eagles are better than the Patriots, probably in both cities. But I think there are still, people who understand that the Patriots have a certain aura still and a certain way of winning games, even though they haven't done it in a couple of years. They can win games they shouldn't win. We just haven't seen it recently. So I think that's kind of how most people feel. It's like perfectly winnable game, and sometimes perfectly winnable means that there's a lot of pressure on you to actually win it.
Fan anxiety, I think, is what that sounds like. Yeah, fan anxiety. And it's funny because, this will probably disturb people in both cities. But the way I like to describe Boston, either for friends who are out of town or just getting a sense of the sports dynamic, is Philly is a much more organized, little bit bigger Boston. Okay, we're going to be rude to you on the street, in traffic, care way too much and identity invested in the sports teams, thankfully, because that's why you and I have jobs. But ultimately, there's so much overlap here that I think it's a similar sense of you might have all the confidence in Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni or all the things going on in defense with all those guys, but there's still a little, I'm not sure. And so it's different here for the Patriots. So I think you're right. And that speaks to the spread, frankly, which I should have mentioned off the top. Eagles are favored by 4 coming in, which would mean neutral field, either 6.5 or 7. One person who's gotten a lot of discussion this week, and we record midweek, this will be out late Thursday, early Friday, Matt Patricia. Yep. His official title is senior defensive assistant. Unofficially, no one in New England knows the hell what's going on. Bill O'Brien said as much this week when we asked about him. And I think it's more interesting than the typical, Brian Flores is in Miami, or Patricia when he was in Detroit, or even Eric Mangini, as fascinating as that chapter was of the Belichick era, because he's the only one with experience coaching offense and defense and working in the front office. He was taught to think about football by Bill Belichick. And so he thinks like Bill Belichick and might know. What is made of Patricia in Philly, and what do you think about his role and what will happen on Sunday?
So I think his role is basically consultant. And I think the Eagles love to acquire coaching talent. I don't think they're afraid to crowd that room, those meetings. They have an offensive coordinator, they have a passing game coordinator, and they have a run game coordinator. All 3 guys are different people. And I think they just like to have as much brain power in the room as possible, knowing that there's a hierarchy. So I think Patricia's really there to provide ideas and to add thought, because they might have liked the fact that he came from the Belichick defense. They might have liked what they've seen from his defenses in the past. I would be shocked if he gave them any info on Patriots offense. I don't think they're going to be running the offense they ran last year. But I do think he's there to just provide extra. They have a new defensive coordinator. He's young. Mm-hmm. They probably would like to have, an extra voice in his ear. This is total guess. I have no info on this, but if I had to guess, I would think he might be in the booth for the games. Maybe he is the eyes above that can report down to the field of what he's seeing from up there. that's a total guess. If he's on the sideline,
well, let's talk about why that would make sense, right? Like he doesn't need to be coaching a position because he's not coaching a position. So you're not kind of on the headset, on one knee, going over on the tablet, let's fix this. He will see things instantaneously that he recognizes: safety rotation, coverage disguises, different fronts that rotate at the last second. Understand not only just this is what they're doing, this is why they're doing it, and then get to relay that down. So I think it's a really good instinct point by you.
Yeah, and even just personnel packages, like and obviously, you could see them coming on the field from the sideline too, but it might be this package they're running a pass play 80% of the time, whatever. So he might just be like a live stats, eyes above. And again, he might be on the sideline, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. It's just a guess, but I would think I think their passing game coordinator is in the booth. I know the run game coordinator is also their offensive line coach, so he's down on the sideline. But they like to acquire brain power, and he's just part of that. And I think the biggest thing with Eagles fans is, oh no, he doesn't get along with Darius Slay. That was like the only thing that anybody thought of when they hired him, was like, don't hire Patricia. Slay doesn't like him. And they have been high-fiving and shaking hands on the field. They've been adults about it. So that was, once I think people saw that, I think they just assume he's just another voice in the room. And people in Philadelphia have actually not talked about Patricia very much since they've seen that happen.
So there's no truth to the rumor that when Jonathan Gannon left, the Eagles decided we need a defensive coach for the fans to loathe so much and find to replace him. And Matt Patricia is number one in that market.
It's funny how much, like, the Eagles had the second best defense in the league last year statistically, and I would say 95% of Philadelphia did not like Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, at least he'll have all of three beat reporters out in Arizona to question him when he wants to run out. Clayton Tune is his starting quarterback in week 1, but we are not here to talk about those birds. No. Let's do a very TV thing.
Sure.
Switch to quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts is playing for the New England Patriots. Mac Jones is with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think this is more than just kind of a TV thing. It's a thought exercise that speaks to the larger roster. But who wins, Mac on the Eagles or Jalen Hurts with the Patriots?
So now I know why you asked me for a rundown before a show, because if you hadn't said this to me, I would not have an answer. Luckily, I've had time to think about this, and I would say that the Eagles would win. And the only reason I say that is because I've seen evidence of it, whereas I haven't seen Jalen Hurts with a lesser offensive line, lesser weapons, in a different scheme. Whereas I have seen the Eagles with Jalen Hurts out win games with Gardner Minshew. I've seen them put up 34 points in Dallas against that Dallas defense with Gardner Minshew, even though he turned the ball over twice. So, like, I have seen the Eagles offense work in real NFL games against real opponents with a quarterback who isn't a running quarterback. And frankly is worse than Mac Jones. Like, let's be honest, Gardner Minshew is not, the player that I think some people think he is.
Infinitely more swaggy, but not as good of a quarterback.
Yeah, no, he's not. He's not good. He has no arm. I mean, his arm, like, it's such a noodle. So I think Mac Jones could be successful in the Eagles offense. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts couldn't be successful in the Patriots offense, but since I've seen it work and I've seen it put up piles of points, I would go with Mac Jones with the Eagles over Jalen Hurts with the Patriots.
And I would agree. The reason this question intrigued me is not only just I had to throw something at you that I think might be on the rundown when I'm pestering you before coming into BST, is just to think the overarching, I think, belief about the Super Bowl last year or last February was, okay, is the power of the quarterback, specifically Patrick Mahomes, going to be enough to overcome the power of basically having a better roster 2 through 52? And the answer ultimately was yes, by the slimmest of margins. But that was a conversation. The Eagles have the better team. The Chiefs have the better quarterback. It's reductive. It's too simple. But the Chiefs won. And so I wonder, with the better quarterback, because you look at the two sides of the ball, Eagles defense certainly has a much bigger advantage over the Patriots offense than the Eagles offense will against the Patriots defense. That's a closer call. And you even that out, where does it go? I think the other part about not only just, Jalen Hurts could probably elevate the Patriots in a way, scrambling or extending plays or just his instinct that Mac can't. But we know what Mac Jones looks like, not only just Gardner Minshew, when surrounded by excellent talent. That's what he was at Alabama. That got him to be a first-round pick in addition to his talent. So I think you might have a 1 point, or 2 point Eagles spread, or it's a pick 'em, because I think Mac is better right now than we give him credit for. We just haven't seen it yet. And I don't have hard evidence to back that up. It's just a feeling of what I've seen in camp. But it's an interesting question because I think most people would default to like, oh, the Eagles. But then that's also a commentary on Jalen Hurts, who, in asking defenders this week in the locker room, they're like, well, we have to defend the concept. Like, he's good, but we got to get our heads around all these different options and directions and, counters in the QB run game. And that tells me they like Jalen Hurts. They don't love him or fear him in a way they might other quarterbacks.
Yeah, which might be a mistake because the funny thing is in that Super Bowl,
electric.
Of all of what we just discussed, which is correct, Jalen Hurts might have been the best player in that game.
That's true.
So, Patrick Mahomes might have been the second best player in that game. And the Chiefs still won, but again, he was clutch. He was amazing. I thought both quarterbacks were clutch. The game was fantastic.
And he didn't have the worst mistake, and that's kind of what it came down to. In the benefit of the penalty and all that, but
I maintain the funny thing is if Hurts doesn't, and look, obviously you don't want your quarterback to fumble and give up a touchdown.
Yeah.
If Hurts doesn't fumble there, I think the Eagles, and they don't score on that possession, let's say, I don't think they have time to score two more times that half. I actually think the Eagles are up 7 instead of 10 if he doesn't fumble that ball. As stupid as that sounds, and I'm not making excuses. I don't. It's fine. I'm over that loss, but it is interesting because the Chiefs scored immediately. The Eagles went back, scored a touchdown, got the ball back, moved down the field at the end of the half, and kicked a field goal. They're up 10, and I don't think they're up 10 if he doesn't fumble that.
No, it's a good way to think about it. I hadn't thought about that yet.
Of course, they could have just scored on that possession, and then that whole point is moved. But
right. We'll never know.
I'm assuming they would punt or whatever.
Yeah, counterfactuals are a lot of fun for TV, but not really ever like resolving a conversation or podcast or radio, whatever you're doing. But for these purposes, I think we are going to agree on this next one, just like we did with the Eagles. So maybe we can go quickly here. You look at all the matchups all the way across the board, and I'm not talking about Patriots receivers versus Eagles receivers, like we all used to read in the paper, the Inquirer for Current. I'm like, they're never going to be on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
I want to know Eagles corners versus Patriots receivers and so on. So you look at all those matchups head to head. Where is Philly's biggest advantage in your mind?
So we're actually not going to agree. I'm going to shock you.
Oh, excellent.
I don't think it's the defensive front versus the Patriots offensive line. And that's because I don't think the Patriots offensive line is going to be as unhealthy week one as we think. And I don't think that the Eagles defensive front are fast starters. Here's where I think the biggest advantage is. And I'm not like taking a dump on these players because I don't think that this group for the Patriots is all that bad. But I think it's the Eagles receivers against the Patriots secondary. And the only reason I say that is because, I think the Eagles receivers are elite, both wide receivers, tight end, and actually backs out of the backfield this year, which is a different story. But I've seen the Patriots secondary struggle against really good receivers. They didn't lock up Justin Jefferson last year. They didn't lock up Stephon Diggs in either game. They didn't lock up T. Higgins. They've struggled against elite receivers, and I don't know. I think Christian Gonzalez is eventually going to be good. I think he has a high ceiling. I don't know how high his floor is for week one, and I would be shocked if those guys get locked up all game. That's actually where I think the bigger advantage is. I think it's I don't know how you cover those receivers. I really don't. I think Devontae Smith is unbelievably good for a second wide receiver, maybe the best in the league. And I just don't know how you cover A.J. Brown, cover Dallas Goedert, and also cover Devontae Smith. I can't. I don't think anybody really figured it out. The only film I would watch is the Colts film from last year and figure out what the Colts did in that Eberflus defense that gave the Eagles fits in that game. That's the only thing I would look at is that.
But that would have been Gus Bradley back then, which is funny because
last year. That's right. Last year was Gus Bradley. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, I forgot Eberflus was the Bears last year. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a good point, and it brings me partly back to the week before New Year's Day, where the Patriots beat the Dolphins. We're having similar conversations about how in the world, without Jonathan Jones and with Quandre Mosley and Tay Hayes, are they going to cover Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? And admittedly, a lot of that answer was just don't have a healthy Tua, because they didn't.
Yeah, that was going to say that was Skylar Thompson.
Right. It was Skylar Thompson playing. But the other thing the Patriots did, in addition to just benefit from significant injury luck, is something they had done a lot in the 3-4 weeks beforehand, which was play more too deep, ton of cover two, which they just threw at Joe Burrow 90 different ways and on basically 80% of their snaps, and a lot more just too deep, so some more quarters. And I'm curious, because this will not only just be a game plan decision to handle 2 receivers. So you're absolutely right. Have a clear-cut, sizable advantage against any of the Patriots corners. And Christian Gonzalez is a rookie, especially week 1, cannot be understated. But I think it might speak to how they want to handle the rest of the schedule, because we've talked about Stephon Diggs is up there. You're going to see CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. Garrett Wilson's going to level up. Oh, and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to follow these guys in 7 days. So how do they want to play defense? And I'm of the mind that they would benefit from playing a little more zone to mollify, all of these hard decisions and tests the Patriots are going to face, and force offenses to be a little bit more patient and make a mistake, especially in December or September when the timing and the rhythm isn't there. And I would hope for their sake they'll do it, but we know this is a defense that want to play man, so it's a really good point. And the other thing about that, there's such a small margin for error, which is my argument for the offensive tackles, which I'm going to go to now, because Calvin Anderson is just started practicing, had a serious illness. Cole Strange, Michael Wenning basically haven't practiced in pads, and they're going to face guys who are not only just first-round picks and guys who have been good forever, but they can just rotate 8 or 9 bodies in there. And the margin for error there as an offensive lineman is so small, because it's worse to give up a touchdown, don't get me wrong, if you get burnt deep. But you give up 1 sack or 2 just from the offensive tackles alone, Calvin Anderson or City Saddle, whoever it's going to be in Trent Brown, you lost. That's it. You had a bad game. And that's unfortunate, but that's how it is. And it's hard for me to look at that group against Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick, who not only just piled up 70 sacks last year, but Hassan Reddick was top 5, top 6 in pass rush win rate, according to PFF. Like, that's just, you need so much help there from play calling and misdirection and other players stepping up and just getting lucky for them not to score a strip sack of Mac, which I just feel like is already destined in a way where maybe if the Patriots play more cover 2, that at least keeps a lid on a 40-yard A.J. Brown bomb or catch and run.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know what it is. For some reason, I just picture like everyone watching this game and watching the Patriots on offense, like staring at the offensive line and seeing blocks happen and thinking like, wow, they're doing it. And it's like, well, yeah, getting sacks is like a hard thing to do. It's, I think at this point, it's actually like a little harder to get a sack than it is to just complete passes to guys who are elite. So the Eagles front going into last year, I always thought the Eagles front was like talented, but always overrated by the Eagles beat, who talked about them like it was, they were, and then of course last year they have 70 sacks. They were unbelievable. But I'm still, I feel like you can kind of, the quarterback can drop back and release the ball in 2 seconds, and he's not going to get sacked. So there are ways to scheme around a bad offensive line. There's chipping, there's 2 tight ends, there's like,
well, RPO, screens, quick game. You're right. Like I've been writing about this, talking about it forever.
I think for whatever reason, I just go into this game thinking like, well, if Trent Brown plays well, and if Onwenu and David Andrews and Strange are there, and like Calvin Anderson is like half competent, like they can kind of get by. I don't know. I might be zigging when everybody else zags, but I would like. There's times I'm watching the Patriots secondary, and there's like very average receivers kind of like running through a zone wide open, and I'm like, man, how are these guys getting open?
And I said this earlier this week.
The way the Eagles receivers are and how good they are at the catch point, even when they're covered.
Yeah.
And the fact that Jalen Hurts has no problem just tossing the ball up to them, that's just, it just feels to me like that's the bigger advantage.
Tossing it up and tossing it up deep. The Patriots allowed the 4th highest average depth of target to quarterbacks who were looking deep against them in the league last year. And so they'll play more safeties. I think they'll play more zone. You're right, though. Like whoever wants to agree with me or with you, nobody's wrong. Like these are problems for the Patriots. We can all agree on that. There are some solutions. How long you can last with RPOs and screens or a quick game or running the ball or going up tempo, 2-3 quarters maybe, and then you screw up. How long can you ask Christian Gonzalez to hold up in man coverage? We'll find out. As per usual, a lot of question marks in week 1. Flipping that around, though, the Patriots' biggest matchup advantage in your eyes is what?
Kendrick Bourne, tight ends, in between the hashes passing game. Eagles lost both of their off-ball linebackers in free agency. They lost both of their safeties in free agency. So while
is that bad? Is that bad?
They don't. It's funny. It's the 2 positions they value the least. They have not drafted a linebacker in the first round, I think, since the 70s. They have not drafted a safety in the first round for maybe ever. And I feel like Nakobe Dean could do what TJ Edwards did last year. I think Zach Cunningham could do what Kaiser White did last year. I don't think they have a CJ Gardner-Johnson. They like Blankenship a lot. I don't know who the other safety is going to be yet. They haven't even named a safety. It'll be a box safety. It'll be probably Terrell Edmonds, but they should be tested. If the Patriots are smart, they would test them there, and I believe they're smart, and I believe they will. But I could see Kendrick Bourne having a good game, and the tight ends didn't do much in the preseason. Maybe that's by design. Maybe they don't want to give that away. But I would test the Eagles early and often across the middle of the field, especially with play action, because week one play action it's the best week one because everyone is so aggressive. Everyone wants to make the play. Everyone wants to make the tackle. These guys haven't really hit like they want to hit all spring and summer. So you're going to have a lot of young linebackers biting on play fakes. You're going to have a lot of safeties turning their hips to run back once they bite on play fakes. So I would exploit the middle of the field as much as possible. I think that's easily the Patriots' biggest advantage.
It's a great call. I have a similar answer, and it's the safeties and Terrell Edmonds, and maybe it's Sidney Brown, and we'll figure out how they're going to, or Reed Blankenship versus Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. The hard part for the Patriots is, as much as you like Hunter Henry, I've been telling everyone, take the over, draft him in fantasy, whatever kind of investment you can make in Hunter Henry in your life, do it. Is those players are still outside the top 5, maybe top 7, maybe top 8 in terms of your best players. And the Patriots' best players are going to run into great players from the Eagles, whether it's Matt Judon or Ramondre Stevenson or Kyle Duggar or even Mike Onwenu if he's healthy. So their biggest matchup advantage still won't be as significant as the advantage the Eagles are going to enjoy as we just described. But I think the Patriots can go to these wells, as you mentioned, over the middle of the field, whether it's with Bourne or Demario Douglas or with these tight ends, more frequently than the Eagles will be able to, and that's something that I think they need to just hammer over and over and over again, because motion and tempo are going to stress not only just new players, but players playing in a new system. And there's a lot of overlap between what Sean Desai wants to do now as their first-year defensive coordinator and Jonathan Gannon. It's a lot of too high and quarters, and that's great. But there's still going to be some new terminology and shifts and adjustments to motion, which got them killed in the Super Bowl. And they're going to stay in that same umbrella. Too high, which means middle of the field open in their terminology. And that's where I think they need to attack. So I think it's a really good point. Closest matchup you're looking for, where this could be a draw from start to finish and you wouldn't be surprised.
I'm going to say Patriots defensive front against the Eagles offensive line. And I think the Eagles offensive line is very good, but they're susceptible to good pass rush. They're susceptible to blitzes at times, especially early in the season. They only have one new player, and their new right guard, who's very capable. That's, if you're going to replace an offensive lineman, being in between Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson, that would be the place ideally that you would want to go. But, as good as that line is, and they're a great run blocking line, I think the Patriots front is, I think they can match them. I think that would be a good punch-counterpunch situation. I also think that Jordan Mailata can be beaten with speed. I think he's a really good left tackle, but he can be beaten. I would try to flip Judon onto that side, keep him there, see if he can rush there. Keep Uche there. I'd put Keon White on that side. I would just keep testing Mailata as much as possible. But
let's stay with Keon White really quickly, just because I've gone over the top about him so far, like calling him a monster. You like him? Yeah. Okay. Is that it? Love, cosign? Like where are we at?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like him a lot. Okay. That was, he's part of my bold prediction for later when we get there. Ooh, but I like Keon White a lot. And, you don't see those ends with that strength anymore. I think that's like what a type of player Dietrich Wise is, but I think Keon White is obviously like a souped up version of that from like a motor and a athleticism standpoint.
Yeah, he's got 20 pounds on Dietrich. I love Dietrich. Keon's already got more swag, even as someone who just got in the league and is stone-faced killer kind of vibes, whether it was draft night or some discussions with the media, which is totally fine. But he's just like, you feel him in a way I don't think you do other players, especially rookies, which granted, he's older than a lot of rookies. I have an agreement here with you too. And it's specifically at the tackles where I think, again, the Eagles are very strong with Mailata and obviously Lane Johnson. But Josh Uche was right there with Hassan Reddick in terms of being top 10 and how often he won his pass rushes according to PFF. And you had 3 players down below him that were all in the top 55 and 60. One of whom, of course, was Matt Judon. Christian Barmore was in there and Dietrich Wise. So except for Barmore, those guys are living on the edge. And that's where, a draw is typically going to favor the defense. Barmore maybe makes some hay there over the right guard. I don't love the Patriots' defensive tackle depth. I mean, they cut Carl Davis, who's been a regular for them since mid-2020. Carl Davis is not deciding this game, but if Lawrence Guy or Devon Gotcha has a so-so game, which they've been known to do, as most players are, that's an issue against a really strong, powerful running game. Forgetting the QB sneaks and just massive humanity, which I personally love. Like everyone in Philly has to embrace that.
It's great. I'm still shocked at like everyone complains about it and no one copies it. Like it's not that hard. You just lower your center of gravity and push the quarterback.
It's so lame. I remember Felger did this, and I was shocked that he was complaining that they were doing this. I'm like, it's within the rules. Do it yourself. This is an advantage.
Everybody should be doing it. It also, like, let's be honest, 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 should be automatic. If it's not automatic for you, you're bad. Like there's a problem.
You suck.
So, like, if you can't gain a yard in a must gain yard situation, that's a problem. So like, I have no problem with like everybody line up low and shove the line and shove the quarterback and there's your yard. It's not that complicated. I cannot believe no one has copied it.
It should be noted though that Jalen Hurts approximately can squat 23,000 pounds because he is a house. He squats houses. Bailey Zappi in the same formation is just going to get broken in half. And again, I like Bailey Zappi. He's not built for hit 6'5" and 205 pounds. Depending on the practice, he might lose 10 or 15 sweating it out. As I would, but the results are very different with a very different kind of built quarterback. This is one of my favorite questions previewing any game because we spend so much time and sometimes can get too into the weeds or you stay outside the forest and just stare at the big picture and miss some sort of detail that really tells the story of the game in retrospect that we all look and go, oh yeah, we should have been talking about that. So what's one, in your opinion, overlooked storyline or aspect or maybe another matchup that we should be talking about more before they kick off Sunday?
Don't mush rush Jalen Hurts. I cannot state that enough. I would get after him as much as possible. I think there's an assumption that mobile quarterbacks are very good at getting outside the pocket and making plays. I think he's if you look at it by success rate, he was the most efficient runner in like 10 years last year as a quarterback. But he's a better running quarterback on designed runs or zone reads. He's not as incredible of a scrambler, and he's especially not very good at throwing on the run. I think his quarterback rating outside the pocket was like bottom third of the league last year.
That's a great stat.
You do not want to mush rush him. You do not want to keep him in the pocket. He's very, very good throwing the pocket.
And that's what you mean. Like for the folks, I think most Patriots fans will know, but the kind of controlled rush, stay in your lane, kind of close in around him. You're saying it's okay to knife through the pocket, maybe not give him a wide open lane, but be aggressive.
He is a mobile quarterback you want to force out of the pocket. And that's something that if I'm the Patriots, I would send blitzes, make sure you're, get there. Don't stay in your lane, get there if you can get there. And if you force him out of the pocket, he's a very average, 2 below average throwing outside the pocket. And part of that is because he's very willing to throw the ball away, which obviously lowers those stats. But like that's an incomplete pass. Like that's a win for the defense. So I would make sure like you're not you pass rush with a purpose in this game.
I like it. My answer is a lot more boring. It's tackling. And this is something that you can count on for a Bill Belichick defense, even in seasons like last year when you go 8-9, everyone's miserable. You have a good defense, but everything else has changed. The Patriots are always going to be sound tacklers. And this is most glaringly an issue in the first couple weeks of the season when everyone is treating it, quote, like the extended preseason. Okay. The Patriots obviously can't afford to do that. What they need to do is wrap up. And you can give up 10, 15-yard gains, sometimes even 30 on a poster out to A.J. Brown, but you need to take him down there. And it's unfortunate for them that there are so many players in this Eagles offense that are difficult to bring down. It's much easier for me to say tackle than me run over and knock over these human beings and put them on the turf. But that, I think, could decide the game for them in a way that flip it around with the players we were just talking about on Philly's defense. Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, if we see some of him, they're more liable to whiff because they're young and they haven't played a whole lot. Okay. So I think that strength of the Patriots might save them in a way that's kind of unseen. You don't give credit for just making a tackle, especially when it's a first down. But if it saves a touchdown in a way that the Eagles blow early and allow the Patriots to get a lead or hang around, completely changes the complexion of the game, in which we'll talk about the fourth quarter, however finished, but we should be looking back and saying they really just wrapped up.
Yeah,
this is a different game and it doesn't get to the way it is. So I think tackling is going to be huge here, and especially for parts of a new coaching staff in Philly with Sean Desai. How well do they drill those fundamentals, or believe they need to at those positions?
Yep.
All right, we're at the end. Bold predictions. I need a score and something that's not a score.
So I am going to say Eagles win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely a path to the Patriots winning the game, which I would say falls into offensive scheme versus new defensive coordinator, where I think the Eagles will probably spend the entire first half in some sort of base defense because no one knows what the Patriots are going to run. I don't think they're watching Texans film to get a feel for Bill O'Brien. I wouldn't. So I think it's going to be a lot of base defense, and I think the Patriots could take advantage of that. Hopefully, for them, take a 2-score lead at some point early in the game. But I will go with the Eagles because I think the talent gap is there. I think it's fairly obvious. I'm going to say 28-17 in a game that's probably 21-17 in the fourth quarter, and a touchdown puts it away. My bold prediction is Jalen Hurts is sacked 5 times.
Wow.
And I think Keon White gets 2 of those. So win for the Eagles. But I think the Patriots will probably come away with some things that they should be happy about.
Rob, I shaved my head earlier today, but the little stubs that were left, you just smoked and blew off and sent to the wall behind me. That is a great take. 5 sacks and 2 of them to Keon White. I'm glad I asked you about Keon White because, damn, that'd be a great game for him.
I think the Patriots are smart enough to know that they need to really bring it, and try to get to Hurts. And week 1, I think the hardest time to pick up a blitz and to get rid of the ball quickly is week 1. So yeah. I would say that this would be a prime time for the Patriots to get to the quarterback.
Well, I think that's all spot on. And the part about them, they're smart enough to know, you got to get a pass rush. That's a good idea. Their pass rush plan also is highly specific. And this goes for a lot of teams. It's not just the New England Patriots. But, okay, we need to get 6 yards back and 2 yards over from where the ball is being snapped, because that's where Jalen Hurts on 63% of third downs like to spot from. He'll go behind the offensive lineman. Maybe it's Lane Johnson. He trusts the most, launch, and get there. If we get to that spot, that means he's off of his spot. And so I think that's where it's going to be a great idea, as you mentioned, to kind of find a balance between the mush rush and just get there, because we need to make him uncomfortable, even if it's not being hit, or he still gets his 3rd and 1s converted and yada, yada. Make him play outside the pocket. And I think that's going to be a really good point. I'm saving my final score prediction for the end, but I will say this. You mentioned 5 total sacks. I think Mac Jones combines for 5 total touchdowns and interceptions. I don't know what the divide is going to be, but when they get close to the red zone, 3rd and 2 or 3rd and goal from the 2, whatever it might be, they're not handing the ball off into the teeth of that defense behind this offensive line. And if they do, it's a bad idea. And if they succeed, then this was a bad idea. But that's where I think they're going to be a lot on Mac Jones.
That is either a really, really successful day or a downright terrible day.
Or you could find somewhere in the middle. If he goes 3 touchdowns, let's say 2 in the first half, and it's like 14-17. And we can both admit this game has the widest range of outcomes, even for week 1, that we can see because of a variety of things we just covered. But he could have 2 touchdowns and a pick in the first half, get to 3 and 1 at the end, and then they're trying to come back down by 10. He throws a second one. You get to 3 touchdowns and 2 picks and go, I don't really care about the 2 picks. The first one was tipped and the last one's in desperation. And that's maybe where I would put the divide, is 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. But obviously the Patriots would love this to be 4 and 1 or 5 and 0. I just think it's going to be a lot of Mac.
I think 3 and 2 would be great because it means the Patriots scored 3 touchdowns. And we didn't do that a lot last year, honestly.
Yeah.
And, you had a field goal to that. You got 24 points. You got a shot.
Awesome. Well, this is a blast, man. I always love our chats. Most often unofficially, when I'm sitting in Phil Perry's chair and desk, looking at the wonderful pictures his children have drawn for him. I keep telling Phil, I'm going to draw you one. You're not going to notice. Now he might, now that we spoke. Rob, you crushed this. Thank you so much for your insight, your background on Philly, taking us kind of behind the scenes at NBC. This was awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so you've heard me say before that you can win with the Patriots season over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You bet there, they win, you win too. Well, right now, new customers at FanDuel can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's win or lose for the Patriots. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. This is for all you folks who live outside New England. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can be on with everything from spreads to player props and more. We give out bets here on the podcast all the time. More are coming. Listen and bet on FanDuel and visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss from FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
Okay, wrapping up one of the best weeks of this season, full of hype and prognostication and predictions. One of my favorite guests, 3-time Super Bowl champion, Ted Johnson, is back on the podcast. Ted, normally we dip our toes in the water. We talk a little movies. We did a little Barbie Oppenheimer. I feel like that ship has sailed. It's going into the sunset. Thankfully, right behind it is football season. So I want to start here. Week 1, again, the predictions and prognostication, I feel like the NFL slaps us all across the face and reminds us we know nothing. This is the craziest week, the most unpredictable week. What do you remember in that sense from your playing days with the Patriots, where you were just so shocked there? And I'll say this: 2003 comes to mind, 31-0 up at Buffalo. Is that it, or is there something else?
Well, that's it. Well, there's 2 games that come to mind. Week 1, and there's a good example of a week 1 for me, and a bad example. And the bad example is what you just mentioned, the 2003 game in Buffalo. 32 zip, I believe, was the exact score, and I remember that because I think it was the perfect symmetry as we played Buffalo at home, the last game of the season where we beat them 32 zip. So the Lawyer Malloy game, week 1, 2003, is always going to be top of mind as far as week 1 shockers. But also for me, it was my rookie year, so I was very fortunate to be part of a tremendous draft class in which the first 4 rounds of guys drafted in the 1995 draft class for the New England Patriots all were starters. Ty Law, the first rounder, me, the second rounder, starting in week 1, and then also, of course, Curtis Martin was our starting running back week 1, as well as our center, Dave Wollabaugh. And we beat the Cleveland Browns, who was quarterbacked by Vinny Testaverde, and the head coach for the Cleveland Browns was Bill Belichick. We beat them 17-14 on a last-second, basically, touchdown from Curtis Martin with no time left to secure the win. So that was one of the most memorable games. It was my first year in the league, starting week 1 against Bill Belichick and the Cleveland Browns and beating them with the last-second touchdown run by Curtis Martin.
So I can't believe I've never asked you this, and this just hit me. All of last season, I did a segment for the post-game wrap-up film review, came out on Monday nights into Tuesday, and it was called "What Would NFL Film Say?" Excuse me. And the genesis for that segment was a VHS tape I had as a kid about the 1995 New England Patriots, and it was called Unfinished Business. And you've got, I can't remember the name of the guy. He used to be the old NFL Films voice, called games for the Phillies, but it was just an incredible show of what NFL Films is all about. Because that season, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys went 5-11, 6-10.
5-11, I believe. Yeah.
I watched that thing until it fell off the wheels or spit out of the VCR. It got too hot and says, I can't take it anymore. Do you know anything about that tape or what I'm talking about?
I don't, but
Okay.
Was it like a highlight tape of us? Like it's almost as if we were 11-5 and not 5-11.
That's exactly what it was. And it took me a while to think of that, obviously now, but it starts with the Browns, game against the Panthers that year. And they kind of skip over. The Colts were still in the division, Miami twice, the Jets twice, Sunday night game, I think, against the Bills. Just spectacular NFL Films, raw stuff. If it wasn't broken, I would lend it to you, give it to you. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because again, that was the genesis for a segment last year. It's kind of what get a lot of us hooked, I think, in my kind of generation on the league, is how much work they did. Because that tape exists. It was a highlight reel somehow 5-11 that I could never watch enough.
I don't know. We had big names, Parcells. They just came off a big year the year before. And then, they were onto something because the next year we went to the Super Bowl, lost to Green Bay, but we had the makings and the ingredients in that 95 team, even though the record didn't reflect that, of something, bigger and better in that team. And so maybe that's why they went over the top for a team that only won 5 games that year.
Yeah, it was spectacular. I don't know if they did that for every team. I will find out on my own because the folks are here for the 2023 Patriots, not the 1995 Patriots. So we've discussed at length, in different places about this game. You and I haven't talked about this in particular, but let's just keep it to the first drive, the first quarter. We all know what we might think happens at the end, but what are going to be the first couple signs you look for of how this game is going to go and what this game is going to be about right from the get-go?
Yeah, the first thing, I think the first thing I'm going to look for is who's the starting offensive line. I want to see who are the 5 players they put out there. How does the operation look on offense? Does it look like a clean operation? Does it look like they know what the hell they're doing? I'll be curious. Clearly, in the first quarter, it tells you a lot, Andrew. As you know, what is the game plan? How are teams going to be trying to attack each other? There's adjustments that are made later, but for the most part, that first quarter sets the tone. So I'm just curious what the offensive line is going to look like. I'm curious what packages on offense are they going to run. I feel like the wide receivers are a big question mark in this game. Are they going to, how many healthy wide receivers are they going to have? And the healthy ones they have, are they going to be leaning on rookies, to carry some of the load? So I'm fascinated about the personnel groupings. Are they going to major in 2 tight ends? Are they going to major in 3 wides? I'm really curious about that. What does the offensive line look like? How are they playing? And just the overall, kind of efficiency and operation on the offense. That's going to be the first thing. And then on defense, I think we're all trying to figure out what the game plan is for defense. It's to me, Andrew, if I can just start into it right now, it's what I think if they need to do against the Philadelphia Eagles, if you're the Patriots defense, is major in zone coverage, particularly, 2 high coverage, 2 high safety coverages, if you will. Major in that. However, timely blitzing and mixing in some man-to-man at timely points in the game are going to be very important. You can't just show them zone all day. It's kind of pick your poison for this team. Do you want to let them just, with the RPOs, if you play a soft zone, you do the RPOs, they're hitting slants all day. They're getting like little, kind of, methodically moving down the field and then hope that you are able to keep them out of the end zone once they get down there. Or do you play them aggressively and play them tight and maybe, let them get, beat you deep down behind you. And so it's going to be interesting. My guess is they'll play a lot of zone, but you got to have some timely blitzing in there and then mix in some man-to-man just to keep them honest. And I think that's truly what the game plan is going to be. Maybe concede the run to some degree a little bit, and those quick slant RPOs that Jalen Hurts and they're so good at. So as long as you don't give up the big play and your red zone defense, which was not that good last year, is got to be on point. So I think at the end of the day, that's probably how they do it. I don't think they can have Christian Gonzalez and Jack Jones chasing these, AJ Brown, who's a thoroughbred around the field, and Devontae Smith, who's, a burner. I think playing zone kind of mitigates some of their speed and what they can do to you. And so you better be damn good at it, but you better mix in some man-to-man at times as well, just to make sure you keep them off balance.
All right, there's a lot there. I want to go back to just the thing that I'm maybe looking for right off the bat, because that is why you're here. A lot of the defensive talk, same stuff you and I talk about a lot. How would you game plan? What would you do here for the Patriots defense? And for folks who want to hear more about what the Patriots offense can do, I recorded with James White earlier this week. He was great, and there's plenty of X's and O's talk there. The first thing I'm going to look for here, though, and it does lean into the defense, is how they're handling some of the zone read or option stuff. Because we all remember week 3, Lamar Jackson, maybe just yesterday, finished running around this defense into wide open C gaps on a lot of power read stuff the Patriots just couldn't figure out. And they spent a lot of this summer working against Malik Cunningham in training camp, against option runs, different varieties. We saw a teeny tiny bit of it in the preseason. It was a whole lot more behind closed doors, if you will, when media was allowed in. But not any fans after they close training camp. That to me is going to be curious because Matt Patricia is going to feel like he has a good idea of what the Patriots want to do. And obviously the Eagles will have counters to that. So whoever wins that battle initially, I think not only just sets the tone for first down, where the Eagles want to stay on schedule. They're explosive, but you don't want Jalen Hurts, like most quarterbacks, at 2nd and 9s, 3rd and 7s, just traditional drop back guys. If the Patriots can force Hurts with whatever technique they want to employ on the edge, it could be a scrape exchange, it could be a straight give, it might be whatever, to make the reads that they want. So they know where the ball's going, either hand it to the running back up the middle or off the side if it's a back or a back away kind of scheme, or force Hurts to keep it. That's a win for them. And that buys them time in their offense to get on track. So I'm curious how they would handle that. How would you handle that? Like we're talking about pick your poison. It's a perfect description for this offense, whether it's running the ball or it's Brown or Smith or Goedert, who we're going to talk about. But how would you handle that specifically if we're looking at the first couple of drives, how Bill is defending that option game?
My guess is, they're gonna be very disciplined on the edges. That's where the damage can be done. If you don't have discipline on the edges, and that's going to be something to look for. And I think a guy that might be play more of a factor in this game is a Keon White, and to some degree, it was interesting. If you watch Keon in that, I believe it was the second preseason game, I might have been the first preseason game, where they had him out there as a defensive end, and there was a lot of times where they would run boots to him, and it was the Green Bay game, and I'm guessing you'll remember this, Andrew. It was he didn't take the cheese on the play action. He didn't get sucked down. He was very disciplined whenever boots would come his way. Any counter action coming back his way, he was where he needed to be. That is what you have to have against teams like the Eagles. The way they run these options around is you have to be very disciplined on the edges. And so between Matthew Judon and whoever that other outside linebacker is or defensive end, if it's Tavai, if it's Keon White, they have to be exceptional in reading play actions and not getting fooled by that so that they can keep containment on the quarterback. And so that's the outside linebackers are a huge part of this game plan. And I think, if they play, more of a 4-3, probably they'll play hybrids going back and forth, but I think they're more of a 4-3 type kind of fronts now. That edge rusher on play action away has to be very, very disciplined, and even play action too. They have to be very disciplined.
So first of all, I love the cheese pun with Green Bay. It was actually the Houston game, but it was the stuff we saw in practice in Green Bay when I was out there for the joint sessions is similar to what you're talking about because, Houston's adopting that Shanahan offense, the boots going away. He's chasing CJ Stroud all over the place, tracking him down from behind. He's a guy, you're right, at 290 pounds can, take wheel routes up the sideline, contain all those different things. And it's a good point. As far as the mush rush goes, I think it's different in the passing down situations. This is something I covered in an earlier segment, but I think when it comes to the read runs, that's something that's interesting where maybe you don't commit fully to forcing Hurts to give the handoff, but just make the reads a little bit more difficult and trust the guys two-gapping in the middle can handle that area if it is a handoff to the running back because, they're trying to play a numbers game. We're not blocking you, but we are blocking you because it's a read. And we're going to trust that if I give it, that means we have one better blocker in the middle behind this inside zone or power scheme, whatever it might be. And if not, then I'm running 1-on-0 the other way because you've committed to that back as the quarterback and I'm keeping it and I'm running, again, free against no defense along the edge. So when you kind of change up your rushes and we talk about coverage disguise and we talk about different pass rushes and backing out of blitzes, maybe there is something to disguising while staying disciplined, like you mentioned, when they want to go zone read, because that's a lot of what they're built in here with this offense, in addition to some of the play action stuff. Other big picture stuff. I mean, you talked about some of the coverage, and I think that's really notable. Let's just go into those corners in that style of defense. In the back end, the zone stuff, we know they bounce between cover 2 and cover 4. This kind of reminds me actually of a playoff game you guys had against the Colts in 2004. One of the most underrated, I think, Belichick game plans ever. And the way you held the Colts to 3 points in that divisional round game, in the essence, according to David Halberstam, who wrote a book about Bill, was making cover 4 look like cover 2. And the whole purpose is to keep those safeties back and just to change up where the soft spots are in the zone, pre to post snap. I think it's a great idea generally, but I think a good idea here because you protect yourself from the long ball. And the Eagles were top 10 an average depth of target last year in terms of how far they wanted to go downfield. Do you see any elements of that? Understanding Peyton Manning is not Jalen Hurts, but you have some excellent receivers back then, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, and today, obviously, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown.
Absolutely. And I'm a huge cover 2 guy. So huge cover 2. What is the main principle of cover 2? So cover 2, cover 4. Obviously not exactly the same, but 2 high safety coverages. The only way that the idea of cover 2 high safeties coverages is to quote unquote take receivers out of the game. So you want to take the receivers out of the game. You want to take away their weapons down the field. You play 2 high safeties. However, if you're going to play 2 high safeties, how many guys is that in the box? That's 7 guys in the box. So when we were playing Peyton Manning, I always said this: if you want to stop Peyton Manning, stop Edgerrin James. Well, what does that mean, Ted? You better stop Edgerrin James with just 7 guys in the box. If you got to commit another guy down there to stop Edgerrin James, then you got to soften up the corners, and that's when Peyton Manning, John Elway would do the same thing. They start going to work to get you out of those 2 high safeties by running the football effectively, because you only got 7 guys in the box. And so the thing with the Patriots defense, my feeling is they concede the run more than ever. I feel like they used to make stopping the run more of a priority. It just doesn't feel that way anymore. And so it almost feels as if, you know what, we're gonna let you to continue to run on our 7-man front with averaging 4.1 yards per carry, as long as you don't beat us deep, and as long as our situational defense, 3rd down and red zone, is on point, we will concede some of those runs, as long as we're not getting beat deep. There will be some of the same thinking in this game is my feeling, Andrew. But they do not want the Eagles to strike fast. They want to make the Eagles work their way down the field, because it shortens the game. That's what the Patriots want to do. They just want this game to hurry it, to kind of shorten, slow down, and drag it out. And so they're almost okay with conceding the running game, as long as they keep those 2 safeties high and protect against the deep ball. That is probably kind of what Bill's thinking is. However, and you can do that to a point, but you got to find your kind of points in the game as a defensive signal caller to be aggressive and right. to hit them with a blitz, to change it up and play some man-to-man. You don't want to always be in the same look every time. That's not good either, Andrew.
Well, let me say, let's assume they take our advice. The Patriots, very wise coaching staff, takes our advice. We're going to major in 2 high. They'll sprinkle in enough variety. We know how much they change the look pre-snap, post-snap, generally with all their coverages. And they protect their corners against receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I mentioned Dallas Goedert. The Patriots defense allowed 11 touchdowns to tight ends last year. We're 2nd most in the league, behind only the lowly Arizona Cardinals. So again, let's assume they play 2 high, and let's assume the Eagles march down into the red zone, and they agree. They say, okay, you want to set the terms of engagement? We're going to have to be patient. We're going to play an efficient game, not so explosive. They get inside the 20. Goedert makes me a little nervous, because he is one of the best all-around tight ends in the league, the numbers I just mentioned, and I like Kyle Duggar a lot. I like Adrian Phillips. I think Jabril Peppers is headed for a breakout season, but you don't love trusting any of those guys in man coverage. And maybe it's Jalen Mills, who's played more man coverage than any of those guys the last couple of years, because he was playing corner. How do you solve him? Because even if it's not in the red zone, let's again to go back middle of the field, you're playing 2 high. That's middle of the field open. That's where Goedert makes his living, and you're a little susceptible in those coverages. Do you just eat it, or how would you handle a guy like him?
Oh man, you know what? I love cover 5 in the red zone. It's one of my favorite coverages, and it's a 2 high safety. It's too high, man under, and so I just love that. You don't want to play cover 2. The Patriots sometimes they like to play zone in the red zone. You got to match fast. If you're off by a split second in zone coverage, then you can get beat. And so
who do you trust in man coverage though? If you're playing cover 5, like you're saying, just the safeties, one of them.
You mentioned Jalen Mills. I'm curious what he can do. Because look, Kyle Duggar, he's a little
revenge game, by the way, for Jalen Mills, ex-Eagle.
What's that?
Jalen Mills, ex-Eagle, kind of a revenge game. Yeah,
but you know what I like? I like his length. And so whenever I think of tight ends in the red zone, I think of length. I think of guys that are a little bit taller, longer arms, the hybrid / safety, linebacker kind of thing. Is that a Marte Mapu covered guy? Is that? I mean, I keep hearing this kid's name as if he's, that they love him. I mean, he's been in a red jersey. I haven't seen him play, but I think he's clear to play in this game. Is a Marte Mapu kind of a guy that you would feel very comfortable putting on a Dallas Goedert. That to me is an intriguing player when it comes to those types of matchups against a player like a Goedert. Andrew, is just maybe that's the kind of player that you would feel more comfortable. I think his profile, the way he's the way he played, at Sac State there, and everything I've heard about this kid, he seems to be like a good candidate for a tight end like Goedert in the red zone.
So let's take this up a level. Would you go so far, now that you're in the take business and not in the business of Marte Mapu, covering tight ends, fitting the run, everything you used to do with the helmet on, can you elevate this and make it a little spicier? Is Marte Mapu may be kind of secret weapon here for the Patriots against Dallas Goedert or somewhere, as a guy who, let's forget, okay, he's not going to cover Dallas Goedert one-on-one all game, but he could factor into some packages against Jalen Hurts, the way he moves and containment and track him down, no? Where are you at? How high can we go here?
Yeah. I mean, look, they've set the bar pretty high for this kid. Maybe the expectations are maybe too high, but just from everything I've been reading and hearing, and again, the profile of the player, it's more of a he's built like a smaller linebacker, but runs like a safety. Okay, that's the tight ends. That's the athletic tight ends. Give me that type of profile of player to cover the more athletic tight ends. A lot of times these safeties, they just, the long arms of these tight ends and the size of these tight ends, you need guys that can, get their hands in front, that are able to reach around, that have the length to high point against these kind of tight ends. And so a lot of times, stockier in the box type safeties aren't always the best guys to put on those athletic tight ends. So enter Marte Mapu or a Jalen Mills, who's gone from was a longer, leaner type corner, now is playing safety. Those are probably the two guys that I would feel most comfortable matching up with a tight end like that in the red zone.
I love it. I think we got there. Mills, Mapu, guys to cover Dallas Goedert in the red zone. If they don't, I would expect some sort of double and help there, which you see a lot from the Patriots in red zone, third down.
Okay, so you can double two guys every play. All right, you can't do three. So you can double two guys. Who are you doubling in the red zone? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert.
Again, we go back to what you said earlier. Pick your poison. That's what this whole offense is. And it's partly in the scheme with the option run game. It's with the weapons on the outside. The reason I bring up Goedert is not only, again, he's one of the best tight ends in the league. The Patriots gave up touchdowns like they were candy on Halloween last year to tight ends. But they doubled Tyler Boyd against the Bengals last year in the slot. And I was going back over that film and asked guys in the locker room after going, okay, Jamar Chase is over there. T. Higgins is over here. And your attention is on Tyler Boyd with these doubles? And their response was, sometimes it's less the personnel and more the location, the geography of where we are. And those middle of the field throws are quicker. They're easier to make for the quarterback. And so that's why they wanted to take him away. Goedert splits out some, but that's why I think of the weapons, maybe they do double him unless they do trust Mills or Mapu, who if I'm the Eagles, I go, great, thank you. Now, at some point, you're going to have a matchup that you feel better about than they do. And whoever's right, we don't know yet until someone picks on that matchup. But that's something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind because of the way they approached that last year with another team in Cincinnati that had three weapons. And the Patriots double the one I wouldn't have guessed that they would double in the red zone. And that's where they landed.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, Andrew, is I think the Patriots got to be careful about being too cute. Okay, so they're hype on this defense, top 5 defense, and I think Bill's very proud of his defense and his two sons coaching on that side and everything, and so they want to come out and make a splash. I would be careful. I would play more conservative because the Patriots defense, and this is just a side note, sorry to go on a quick tangent here, but the Patriots defense, for it to be the top 5 defense, that some people think they can be, they need film they need to identify tendencies and trends in a team that they're playing against. That's how, and so they're better game planned to play those teams. Right now, there's no film on the Eagles. They don't know what to expect from the Eagles. And so it mitigates some of, I think, their effectiveness to game plan and to call a better game. And so if I'm the Patriots, is they want to be versatile, they want to be disguising, but don't do it. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face. Don't get so cute against this team to how to show everyone how good you can be, because they're going to have an answer for you. And so I would just play a more conservative game, at least in the first half, before I start doing too many cute stuff on defense. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to see this defense, because they've been playing together so long that they know each other's positions. They don't have the same players that our 04 defense did, but they have players that have played a long time like that 04 defense did. So I could play Teddy's position. Teddy can play my position. Vrabel can play my position. I can play Vrabel's position, because we've been playing together for so long. These guys are kind of the same way. And so I think they really want to show that to everybody, how versatile and how scheme kind of just up they are on top of the scheme they are. But I wouldn't do it in this game, because that offense is average. I mean, I think combined the last two openers, they scored over 70 points. And so you don't want to get too cute in this home opener. You want to be more conservative in your play calling. But again, not totally conservative. Pick your times in the game when you want to hit them with a blitz and hope that they get home with it.
Well, to your point, the solution that the Patriots have offered every time we bring up Devin McCourty's not here and your quarterback's gone. Someone else has got to call signals and play single high and all the cover 1 and cover 3 that you run, which is among the league leaders, or at least it was until December last year, is, we'll just rotate guys in there and everyone can play different spots. And so I think from what we've heard from them, this is the way you put it, don't get too cute. 3 words, we've all heard them. Do your job. This is a simpler do your job game. And I think they'll have a smaller packages of things they want to get to, a shorter menu, because the Eagles offense, in turn, Belichick said it this week, there's not a lot of mystery here. Like, they have built-in options every play that allows them to be multiple. But as far as like their whole menu of concepts and all the different passing plays they have and runs, it's not as voluminous as you would find in other offenses. So in that instance, you can play simpler coverages and answers with some wrinkles, of course, but that comes in your disguise. We'll get to the same coverages or fronts. They'll just get a little bit different in that pre-snap window, or when we're rushing off the edge or trying to contain that read run. But we're still doing the same things, just making it look different. All right, we've talked a lot about this game. I am very glad this game is finally here. One thing I haven't asked you, though, what do you know, if anything, about Brady's return? He's apparently going to be on the field pregame. We're going to have a halftime ceremony. Ty Law says a bunch of old guys are coming back. Are you going to be at the game? Do you know any old teammates that are coming back? What are you looking for from Brady?
Yeah, no, I don't get a lot of calls from the Patriots. It's been although I will be involved in, I'm very happy to say, in Mike Vrabel's return to get his red jacket. So I'm going to be involved in the ceremony for that, which is going to be great. But otherwise, I won't be a part of it. I'm working post game for NBC Sports Boston, so I have a job to do. But I'm kind of out of the loop. I wish I was more in the loop. It's been a long time since I've been in the loop, but I heard Ty saying that he's going to come in and maybe some other guys, which is fantastic. Tom deserves all the shine and praise and acknowledgement that he's going to get. So if you ask Zoe, he's kind of in the dark, and so that guy usually everybody tells him everything, and so Zoe doesn't know much of what's going on. Then I certainly won't either. So no clue, Andrew, what to expect when it comes to Tom Brady on Sunday. Other than the anticipation is that it'll be a big celebration at halftime, and that nothing's scheduled pregame.
It's a great point. If Zoe does not know a man who spends regular time with Bill Belichick privately. I mean, privately, they put the show and the X's and O's and the Illustrator online. We all watch it after the fact. But if Zoe doesn't know, many people do not. So it's a great point. And thanks for checking in anyway. All right, let's get to the game pick. I need a final score from you and some sort of bold prediction of what we're going to see on Sunday to go along with that final score.
I've said this last night on Early Edition. I think the Patriots are going to be in a lot of close games. I do. I just think the offense is going to be more competent. I think they're going to have a better than average defense, if maybe not a top 10 defense. And so I think they're going to be in games close. But in the end of the day, I think the Eagles they're just too good. I did a draft yesterday for early edition where I
saw this.
And I screwed up. I missed Hassan Redding. I didn't put Hassan Redding in there, but I had two top 10. If I'm drafting between the two teams, I had 8 Eagles players and 2 Patriots players, and I still missed Hassan Redding. So really it should have been 9 Eagles players and 1 New England player. The point is, of the 8 players that I picked in the top 10 for the Eagles, they have a combined 14 All-Pros to them versus the Patriots 0. It's just a huge talent gap.
So we're talking like 30-10, 40-0. How bad is this?
30-24. Sorry, 30-24.
30-24. Okay, that's actually pretty good considering everything we just went through. It's pretty good. I was just gonna say I teased this prediction early, gone back and forth. I finished Eagles 27, Patriots 23. I think the Patriots start fast. I think their edges, which you just talked about for the Eagles offensively with a new system, new coordinator, are going to play to the Patriots' advantage early on because you know what you're going to get from that defense. That's a we do what we do kind of defense. Talented as it is, they'll go tempo, everything I talked about earlier this week, wham, trap runs, RPO, screens, play action, yada, yada. But you can only get by on that for so long. And I think eventually the talent will be the talent. And I have Eagles 27, Patriots 23 in the end. But I think it's a late effort push, missed tackle. And there goes A.J. Brown for a touchdown that puts them over the top. But I would not be surprised in the least if the Patriots pulled this out.
Close this game. We're on the same with that. Okay, yeah.
What about a bold prediction?
So I don't know if it's bold, but I think even with the issues of offensive line, I like our running backs. I love our running backs. So is it a bold prediction to say the Patriots will rush for over 130 yards? I don't know. Ooh. I don't know what that.
Let's go 140 and we'll call it a night.
Let's call 140. Makes it bolder. The Patriots rush for more than 140 in this game. That's my big bold prediction.
Cool. I like it. I'm encouraged by Ramondre Stevenson. Asked him yesterday, as we record late here on a Thursday, hey, what's going to be the difference that we see from Ramondre last time we saw him in a football field to this year? He said more relentlessness. You would love to say like, oh, I run a 4.2 now, or I squat 900 pounds like Jalen Hurts. He doesn't. But I think sometimes that relentlessness gets undervalued. He'll break one more tackle. That'll help against a vulnerable linebacker and safety group and head off to the end zone. Zeke, I'm not as high on as a guy who just doesn't have the wiggle and the elusiveness to create extra yards after contact. But the fact he can give Ramondre rest is huge. So I like that. All right, Ted, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. We will see you Sunday on NBC Sports Boston at every Patriots game coming forth. Great analysis. We'll have you back. And let's all have a Sunday, man. Football's back.
I know, up on Bud. This is what we love to do, and so this is our time to shine. So buckle up. It's going to be a compelling season. The Patriots are always entertaining, even if it's not going as the way we want. So I look forward to seeing you throughout the season, Andrew. You do good work, and call me anytime.
Got it. Appreciate you.